So meditation's good for everyone, right? Well, not really. I'm Rose Kress, and I'm the owner and director of the LifeForce Yoga Healing Institute. And let's talk a little bit about meditation, specifically meditation for mood disorders like anxiety, depression, PTSD, etc. So first, let's talk a little bit about meditation and the research behind it. So there's a lot of research and some cool research that has come out recently about the brain and meditation. So your prefrontal cortex, this part of the brain, which is the thinking part of the brain, actually gets a little bigger when we have a regular meditation practice. This is important because this part of the brain is the thinking and reasoning part of the brain, the part of us that makes those good, informed decisions. And so research has shown that this part of the brain actually gets bigger. You actually have more synaptic connections in that part of the brain, so it's more active and accessible. And the gray matter, you actually have a larger brain when you have a regular meditation practice. This is good. Meditation is also shown to reduce the size in the parts of the brain that are reactive to stress. So when we get stressed out, we actually start to hardwire our brain for stress. So being stressed out for a moment is fine, but if you're stressed out on a regular basis because you have a stressful job, you have a stressful life, etc., your brain starts to change its size and change its focus. So when we start meditating on a regular basis, the parts of the brain that are stress response parts of the brain, like the amygdala, actually start to get smaller, and the synaptic connections inside those parts of the brain also get less and less. So our brain literally changes when we have a regular meditation practice. Research that has come out in the past week shows too that long-term meditators actually recover from stressful events faster than people who are just starting out on a meditation practice. Long-term meditators also have more emotional stability and emotional regulation than short-term meditators. Why is that important? Well, that means that you're more likely to use the prefrontal cortex, making good decisions and responding to stimulus, responding to a stressor, than what we might do if we had less emotional control, which is react and lash out and potentially make bad decisions or decisions that come to be harmful to ourselves or to those around us, like your boss yelling at you and you yelling back at your boss and losing your job, as opposed to your boss yelling at you and being able to take that breath, take that pause before responding to your boss that yelled at you. You may still quit your job, but you will have done so with some forethought rather than as a reaction. So all of this is good, but what we know about the brain in people who have long-term depression or are depressed or long-term anxiety is that this prefrontal cortex actually gets smaller. And so meditation, then it stands to reason it would be a great practice. Well, think about the times when you're depressed or anxious. Think about what's going on in the depressed mind and what's going on in the anxious mind. The depressed mind is focused and ruminating most of the time, maybe stuck in the past, maybe overthinking things about decisions it has made. The anxious mind is focused on the future and thinking, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about this? And the brain, the mind that's struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder and an active trauma history is really concerned about, well, what's happening right now? What's happening? I need to protect myself. So when you sit down to be quiet, all of that stuff becomes louder because we're giving it space to talk. So what do we do to meditate then? We know these practices are good for us, but what are we going to do to make it more accessible? Well, that's where LifeForce Yoga comes in, because our focus is giving you the accessible tools that you need so that you can do things like meditate. So you can do things like take a couple of breaths and ultimately change your brain and change your life. So some simple practices that you could start engaging in right now. Mantra. Mantra means tool of the mind. Mantra can be your best friend when you are trying to meditate for the first time. Try it on. A simple mantra like Om. Om is the sound that everything makes all this at the same time. It's an ancient healing sound. It's a Sanskrit word. And you can chant it out loud. Om, Om, which has a nice vibration in the chest, which also we know mantra, particularly singing, actually helps to change the breath, which can also deactivate the stress response. So this is a good thing. You can also use the mantra of Om internally. So chanting it in the mind as you inhale and chanting it in the mind as you exhale. So try that for 5 minutes. Just sit down, set a timer, inhale with Om, exhale with Om. If you get lost or you start to struggle, don't worry about it. These things take a lot of practice. Keep coming back to a mantra. You can also try a prayer as a mantra if that works for you and if that's more in keeping with your tradition and your background. Another simple practice that will help keep your awareness anchored so that you can do meditation is counting the breath. For some of us, counting is going to be anxiety producing, so you don't have to do that. You would count up to 5, count down from 5 to 1. So that would look and sound like this. Inhaling 1, exhaling 1. Inhaling 2, exhaling 2. Inhaling 3, exhaling 3, etc., etc. You get to 5. When you get to 5, you count back from 5 to 1, and you keep doing that. So that's yet another practice that helps anchor the mind in present moment awareness. And the third one that's really helpful and that's nice, especially this time of year as the weather's starting to turn into some good weather, is a walking meditation. So you can head outside. If you've got a labyrinth handy, labyrinths are really wonderful for walking meditation. If you don't, go find a park. If it's appropriate in your area, you can take off your socks. Those of you that are lucky enough to live by the ocean could do this on the beach. And as you walk, you're going to pay attention to the sole of your foot as the sole of the foot is making contact with the earth. Feel the sole hit the earth and then roll over the ball of the foot to the toes and the next foot. Focus all of your attention on the feeling of your feet and the movement of your feet, how your weight shifts. This is a simple walking meditation practice. So there are 3 practices that are appropriate for an anxious mind, a depressed mind, a mind struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder or trauma. Keep it simple. And most importantly, this is an everyday practice. Do it exactly like it was described to you for 5 minutes a day, and try that for 3 weeks before you start to change anything. One of the bigger mistakes that we make is we start to adapt things for ourselves. And that's fine and that's beautiful, but if we never tried it out the way it was given to us, we'll never know how to adapt it properly for us, and we'll also never know if the practice worked for us. So try that out. You can also head over to yogafordepression.com. We've got lots of tools on yogafordepression.com. A beautiful tool called the LifeForce Yoga Chakra Clearing Meditation, which helps to prepare you for meditation. We've also got a wonderful webinar, Meditation for Beginners, to help you establish a meditation practice, where we go over a number of different meditation techniques that are appropriate for the mind that struggles with anxiety and depression and trauma. So wishing you well on your meditation journey. Until next time, thank you.